Relative clauses often begin with a relative pronoun, like in these two sentences. The song that the band played at the party had everyone dancing. The song that played at the party had everyone dancing. The relative clause in each begins with the relative pronoun that. Sometimes, the relative pronoun can be left out. We can leave out that in the first sentence, like this. The song the band played at the party had everyone dancing. We can't leave out the pronoun in the second sentence. In this lesson, we're going to look at when and why a relative pronoun, including who, whom, which, and that, can be left out. When can a relative pronoun be left out? To answer this, we need to understand the difference between a subject relative clause and an object relative clause. In a subject relative clause, the pronoun refers to the subject. In an object relative clause, the pronoun refers to the object. Let's look at our two sentences from earlier and see if we can work out which is which. Here is the relative clause in the first. And here is the relative pronoun. The relative pronoun that is the subject of the verb played. For this reason, this is a subject relative clause. Here is the relative clause in the second sentence. And here is the relative pronoun. This time, that isn't the subject. The band is the subject. That acts as the object of the verb played because it is receiving the action of being played by the band. That refers to the thing that was played at the party. For this reason, this is an object relative clause. Why is this important? Because in an object relative clause, we can leave out the pronoun, like in this sentence. In a subject relative clause, we cannot leave out the pronoun. Let's look at two more sentences. The woman whom I met at the cafe is very friendly. The woman who works at the cafe is very friendly. Here is the relative clause in each, and the relative pronouns whom and who. In the relative clause of the first sentence, I is the subject, met is the verb, and whom is the object. It refers to the woman who is receiving the action, met. For this reason, this is an object relative clause. We can leave out the pronoun in an object relative clause. So we could simply say, the woman I met at the cafe is very friendly. Leaving out the relative pronoun can make sentences more natural and easier to read. In the relative clause of the second sentence, who functions as the subject. It refers to the woman who is performing the action of working. For this reason, this is a subject relative clause. We cannot leave out the pronoun in a subject relative clause. Now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. Work out whether the underlined relative pronouns can be left out. Remember, if a relative pronoun is a subject, it cannot be left out. If it's an object, it can be left out. Pause here while you work. Let's see how you went. Number 1. Here is the relative clause. The subject of the clause is we, and that is the object of the verb watched. That refers to the movie. This is an object relative clause. The pronoun that can be left out. We could say, the movie we watched was really exciting. Number 2. Here's the relative clause. The subject of the clause is who, which refers to the author. Therefore, this is a subject relative clause. Who can't be left out. Number 3. Here is the relative clause. The subject of the clause is I, and which is the object of the verb bought, making this an object relative clause. We can leave out the pronoun which. So we could say, he's wearing the hat I bought for his birthday. Number 4. Here's the relative clause. The subject of the clause is that, which refers to a computer. This is a subject relative clause, which means that can't be left out. Number 5. Here is the relative clause. Which refers to the tree. Which is the subject of the relative clause. We can't leave out which. Number 6. Here's the relative clause. The subject is I. Whom is the object of the verb meet. This is an object relative clause, so the pronoun can be left out. We could say, there's someone I want you to meet. One last thing before we finish. In a non-defining clause, the relative pronoun cannot be left out. EasyTeaching.net